Hello students. Today just I will teach you chemistry. In your school just I take biology and chemistry board. I have sent you two videos for biology. But today just I am going to make a video for chemistry. Just you have to listen carefully. In class 10, first chapter is chemical reaction. So today we will study about chemical reaction. Can you give the answer? What is chemical reaction? Listen, there are many definitions which are used by us to define chemical reaction. What is chemical reaction? First of all, just I am going to give you one definition. Those reactions in which a new substance are formed, is formed. We can say the reaction in which the chemical properties of substance gets changed permanently is called chemical reaction. It is also can be defined in this method or way. A reaction in which a state of a substance gets changed is called chemical reaction. For example, just I have given here a chemical equation. You are seeing here, when magnesium reacts with oxygen, then it gives a white colored ash that is called magnesium oxide. Here, the chemical properties of magnesium oxide is different from the chemical properties of magnesium. Here we are seeing a new substance, magnesium oxide, is formed. Means the state of magnesium is permanently changed into magnesium oxide. Since here the state of magnesium gets changed into magnesium oxide, so it is the example of chemical reaction. Second definition, the reaction in which change in color takes place is also called chemical reaction. For this, just I have given an other example. Means when lead nitrate reacts with potassium iodide, then the formation of lead iodide and potassium nitrate takes place. You will see what is this chemical equation explain. Just yes, I am going to explain. Lead nitrate is a colorless solution. Means just here we have taken lead nitrate, aqueous solution of lead nitrate. Aqueous solution of lead nitrate is colorless. Potassium iodide we have taken means aqueous solution of potassium iodide. Aqueous solution of potassium iodide is also colorless. But when we pour both the colorless solution in a single container, then the color of the solution turns yellow. How does it possible? Listen. When both gets combined, then a yellow precipitate of lead iodide is formed. Since its color is yellow, so due to the formation of this yellow precipitate, the color of whole solution turns yellow. Since here change in color takes place, so it will also the example of chemical reaction. Next definition we will see. What is chemical reaction? The reaction in which change in temperature takes place will also be the example of chemical reaction. For this, just I have given an example. You are seeing here, when quicklime means calcium oxide reacts with water, then calcium hydroxide is formed. Here I have written heat means the reaction in which heat is retained at the second means product side of the chemical equation is the example of exothermic reaction. Means it says that heat is produced here. Means here temperature gets changed. Since temperature gets changed here, so it will also the example of chemical reaction. At last, next definition means the reaction in which gas is evolved is also a type of chemical reaction. And means for this, just I have given a chemical equation. You are seeing here, when hydrochloric acid reacts with zinc, then zinc chloride and hydrogen gas are formed. Hydrogen gas, since in this reaction gas is involved, so it is the example of chemical reaction. Means we can say those reactions in which chemical properties of a substance gets changed permanently, those reactions in which change in color takes place, those reactions in which change in temperature takes place, and those reactions in which evolution of gas takes place are called chemical reaction. So we are seeing here chemical reaction can be defined by three ways. Now just I am going to say you about chemical equation. What is chemical equation? Chemical equation is a symbolic representation of a chemical reaction which is written by the use of symbols and formulae of the reactants and products which participate in that reaction. Means you are seeing here, just I have written something on the board. All are the example of chemical equations. In this equation, I have used the symbol of magnesium, oxygen, and the formula of magnesium oxide. It is the example of chemical equation. Means this chemical equation has been written against the chemical reaction in which just I am going to say, or I have said you, when magnesium reacts with oxygen, then it gives magnesium oxide. So this reaction has been written here on the board in symbolic form. So it is the example of chemical equation. Once again, just I am going to explain what is chemical equation. A symbolic representation of a chemical reaction in which, or we can say, which is written by the use of symbols and formulae of the reactants and products which participate in that reaction. Now, just I will say, what is the importance of chemical equation? What is the importance of chemical equation? Listen, a chemical equation tells us about the chemical reaction. Many things about the chemical reaction. What are those things? Listen. First of all, a chemical equation tells us what is the physical state of the reactant and product which participate in that chemical reaction. For example, just I have written here, see carefully, AQ, just I have written AQ just in front of the lead nitrate. This AQ tells us about that in this reaction, lead nitrate is present in the form of aqueous solution. Just in front of potassium iodide also I have written AQ, means aqueous solution of potassium iodide. Means in this chemical reaction, potassium iodide has been taken in the form of aqueous solution. After that, just I have written just in front of lead iodide S for solid. Means it tells us about that in this reaction, lead iodide is present in the form of solid. Now, here also just I have written quicklime, calcium oxide is present in the form of solid. Water is present in the form of liquid. Means a chemical equation tells us about the physical state of all the reactants and products which participate in that reaction. One thing. Second, by the use of chemical equation, we can identify which chemical reaction is exothermic and which chemical reaction is endothermic. Means there are two types of chemical reactions. One is called exothermic and other is called endothermic. Those chemical reactions in which heat is evolved are called exothermic chemical reaction, whereas those chemical reactions in which heat is absorbed are called endothermic chemical reaction. So how will you identify which chemical reaction is exothermic and endothermic? Listen, those chemical reactions, means the chemical equation which is written against of chemical reaction, if heat is retained in the right hand side of the sign of arrow with heat, means we once again listen, if heat is written with positive sign at the right hand side of the sign of arrow, will be the example of exothermic reaction. But if heat is written with the sign of positive in the left hand side of the chemical equation, then it will be the example of endothermic. For example, formation of ammonia N2 plus 3H2 gives 2NH3. It is the example of endothermic reaction because here heat is written in the left hand side of the sign of arrow. So the chemical equation in which heat is written in the right hand side of the sign of arrow will be the example of exothermic reaction, and those reactions or chemical equation in which heat is written in the left hand side of the sign of arrow will be the example of endothermic reaction. So we are seeing here by the use of chemical equation we can say what is the physical state of the reactant and product, what is which chemical equation is the exothermic and which chemical equation is endothermic, etc. Now by using chemical equation we can say which chemical reaction is conditional reaction. You will see in some chemical equations something is written just above or below the sign of arrow, means the reaction in which something is written at above or below the sign of arrow will be the example of conditional reaction. For example, you know CaCO3 when heated then it breaks into calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. Here just I have written the sign of heat means delta, it is called delta. So just I have written this above the sign of arrow. So since I have written above the sign of arrow, it means it says that it is the condition here, means calcium carbonate on heating breaks into calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. So by using chemical equation we can identify the conditional reaction. In this way, just we have seen here chemical equation help us to identify many properties of chemical reaction. For example, just physical state, after that conditional reaction, which chemical reaction exothermic, which is endothermic, etc. Okay, for today it is enough. In my next video just I will give you some important things.